Happy New Year. Welcome to Champagne Dreams. I'm your host, Stephanie Walters, joined by
Daryl Dwayne.
what's up, Daryl? We're back finally.
I mean, life was life, and as you said in our post,
Life was
like
like this.
2022, like it came with all kinds of tricks, and I mean,
Yeah.
I survived 2 car wrecks. I'm gonna just put that out there for our
Won't he
viewers.
do it?
Won't he do it? God, he had the steering wheel literally
Yeah.
like, to keep me in the midst of those 2 car accidents.
Right.
So, yeah, life was life. And how have
Yeah.
you managed to make it through 2022?
Woo. My friends.
Different.
And that's what we're talking about today, like having a good circle around you, like just having really good people around you. I think that's really how I've gotten through probably since pandemic. I know we started this podcast during the pandemic and we were consistent because all we had to do was be in the house and
Pretty
outside
much.
open. And we was like, oh, we have too much going on in life. So now we're back and it's very exciting. But yeah, like my friends, my inner circle, kind of really held me together. And I think that's what we're talking about today, right? Like
I
new
mean,
year, new me, but kind of not.
exactly. I mean, that is the focus. And for those who may not watch us regularly, I mean, ultimately, if this is your first time viewing, we tend to cross over, pop culture, politics, and life, like everyday life. So we focus on and this particular episode, we're going to be focusing on life and, as you highlighted or underscored, friendships and the
Yeah.
importance and the relevance of those friendships, right? Because
Yeah.
so many things happen in our life, and I think as we kick off the new year, we're always looking for ways to
Mhm.
basically revamp or remix ourselves. And
Right.
maybe we should take a beat. If 2022 hasn't taught us anything, it's taught us that maybe, it's not always you're the problem. Maybe it's the company you keep. And I think the importance of having a circle that can help elevate you as you hopefully pour back into them,
Mhm.
that they're also pouring back into you. I think that's important and relevant,
Yeah.
and not maybe talked about enough, right?
Absolutely. And I think the new year is a great way to you could kind of reevaluate your circle, reevaluate who's around you, reevaluate who you're letting into your space and who you're pouring into. And when I think about all of those things, it's like about showing up for your friends. And I know we had a really good conversation about that over the holidays. Like, how do you show up for your friends? How do you support? Like, which friends you can call on to, hey, pull up and ride with me to the set. Hey, let's go, shoot some pictures and take 8,000 pictures of me. So I think which people to call, but like I think some people really don't know how to show up for their friends and how to support people in just like this natural, organic way.
And with that, I mean, for all of you all who are viewing, like under the comments, we want you to let us know, how do you show
Yeah.
up for your friends? What are some cool ways that you show that you're there to support your friend? You're a ride or die. Are you a ride or
Mhm.
die? Do your friend has to tap you in, or do you just jump in?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the point. How do you show up? So I know in our conversation earlier about showing up for our friends, we talked about the multiple ways one can do that. And it's not always about buying something that they're doing
Mhm.
or creating. However, for all of our artist friends and performer friends,
Purchasing
purchasing
financially
does
is
help.
important.
But sometimes it's as simple as you all are watching this, liking this post, right?
Mhm.
Commenting under this post, because again, we all know how the algorithm works. It's all
Yeah,
about,
it's trash.
interaction. Well, it is trash. We're not even going to lie about that. Like, we clearly see it's trash. They
Yes.
want you to pay for the marketing and promotion of your thing, in order for you to see a real return on that investment. However, your friends, though, can be the catalyst to sort of kick things off by just simply
Mhm.
resharing this post, right, friends? So we're talking to you. But I say that to say, ultimately, it's not always a monetary thing when it comes to
Mhm.
supporting your friends. Sometimes it's just showing up, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think the key too is surround yourself with people who aren't in competition with you. I
Ooh.
think sometimes, and I haven't been in this situation probably in like some years, maybe like 10 plus years ago, but when you think about people who either want to be you, want to do things that you're doing, or want to be involved in the circles that you're in for their own personal gain, that's not very, that's not authentic, then it can cause a problem. And so when you think about really showing up and supporting, like who is around you that you feel so full around and that you feel so inspired by. I know with you and I'll use like our trip for example. When I did the TV show in Richmond, I was like, hey, Daryl, do you want to ride with me to the TV station? And you're like, yeah. I was like, all right, I'm picking you up at 6:30 and we're gonna roll. But what you
Yeah,
did, like you were there, you helped me set up, you
yeah,
captured stuff behind the scenes, like you were an asset in that situation. Where I've been in other situations with other people and it's like, I don't want to do this, I don't like this, like this is
mm,
not my thing. But here's the thing, I don't care if it's not your thing. If you're there to support somebody, you just do it. Like we've had friends who come to Fashion Week with us who will just carry a bag, carry a lens, be there
yeah,
behind the scenes and just
yeah.
capture stuff because they know that's what our dreams are. And in that same breath, whenever they have something, we're going to help them out. Oh, you have an event? How can we, let's go stuff 1,000 goodie bags for people. Let's go, pick up the food that you need for the event. And so when you think about, okay, who's really in your corner in that way? Are they just showing up for the photo ops and for the opportunities? Or are
Yeah.
they really, really down for you when things aren't even as like highly publicized yet? Because it's great to show up for everybody when somebody's on a billboard, or a celebrity is going to be there, and things are really lit.
Yeah.
But when you're in the trenches of really pulling stuff off behind the scenes and you don't even know how it's going to turn out, or you might only get 5 or 10 or 20 likes on something, that's when that support really, really matters.
I mean, you hit on a very important point there, showing up when no one's applauding, right? And I think we cannot stress that value in that, right? Like
Underscore.
underscore, right? Like everybody had a starting point, right?
Mhm.
And half the celebrities you all are wishing happy birthday to that don't know your first name from your last, right? Who you constantly show up for on their social media, and on their platforms. You have friends who are in similar predicaments who are also starting at ground one, right, or level one, and they want you to support and show up for them in the same manner. And we find it difficult to do so because no one else is applauding for them.
But you
And
don't know who's going to become the next, whatever it is.
you don't. And if your friend is very talented in whatever arena they're tapped into, whether that's performing arts, whether that's visual arts, whether that's TV and production, like yourself, then you want to show up for them in your best as your best self, and not to look at it from a lens of what can I get from the situation, but
Mhm.
just to be there and just to be happy and that cheerleader for your friend. Because let me tell you, I come from the performing arts world, and just having that cheerleading crowd,
Mhm.
who can tell you straight up, you killed this performance, or you know what, you
Mhm.
didn't kill this performance. I've seen you better. Those people are the people that sort of get you to the next level, right?
Right.
Those are the people that when you get to the next level, those are the ones you're tapping in to be
Right.
your ride or dies. I mean, we
Yeah.
what's happening. I mean, we can use even pop culture, as we always say, this is a poly blend of
Mhm.
pop culture, but pop culture things that are happening right now. We look at the Megan Thee Stallion. I hate to bring that conversation back up because I know
Yeah.
that's a talking point many of us probably want to see put to rest. But you look at how the circle that's around you, right, and how unfortunately she had maybe not the healthiest circle around her in this
Mhm.
predicament, and unfortunately fell victim to misogyny and
Mhm.
infighting, right, between her and her friend. We don't know the backstory to
Right.
full
Right.
backstory to what happened with all parts of this. However, we do know that a friend injured supposedly not one friend injured the other friend, right? And they were friends allegedly at the time, without, when you take away all the other mess. And the fact that you could you could get to that level, right, to where you want to cause bodily harm to a friend,
Mhm.
and it's past a discussion. You have to really evaluate whether this person is for me or not, right? Because there's never been a point where I wanted to like lay hands, right, on a friend, to where I could
Right.
control myself, where I
Yeah.
felt the
Yeah.
need to actually put hands on them. Not to say that you're not going to have fights or bickering. I mean, that's a given. But when you're in that space where you feel like you're in a compromising position where you and your friend can't see eye to eye, the next step in that conversation, or next step in that thing, should be to distance yourself for a minute, pause, take a break, and really evaluate why you're really mad, right? Is it jealousy? Is it envy? And then maybe you look
Mhm.
inward and figure that part out,
Yeah.
then go back to your friend and reconcile and figure out how you can move forward. I've
Yeah.
seen friendships, you were talking 10 years ago, I've seen friendships where there were people who were friends for 5, 10, 15, 20 years plus, and then they dissolve over foolishness. The Issa
Mhm.
Rae series, what
Insecure.
the Cure is a perfect example, when her and Molly fell out, right? I think all of us were applauding to see her and Molly sort of come back together, but underneath it all, I think all of us also have seen a moment in our lives where we, may have been Amali or Issa, where there was this growth that happened for both of them, and
Mhm.
they had to meet each other where they were at in that moment, if that makes sense. They both were no longer the individuals they were when they first became friends, and they both have grown, and they needed to understand what that growth in their own personal journey looked like, to be able to come back together in this moment, after they've, got themselves together, and like, I'm
Yeah.
person, and how my boundaries I let you cross before are not the boundaries that I'm going to let you continue to impede on, because I'm no longer that person.
Right. And I think that kind of brings me to my next point. It's like I think in different season of our lives, like we attract different people, but then there's still always those like standard like friends that are always going to be there, but not always going to be there, but grow with you. So I it irks me when I see people who like switch up different friend groups every like other year, especially if you have not like done a move, right? Like a
A
physical move
life
across the
transition
country
to
where
move
you right, a
here.
life transition where you have to make new friends or whatever. And I think that's only because like, it takes time to build and nurture
A genuine.
friendships. I think even like how we started and now we're to the point, I'd be like, Daryl, chill out. Like, or you'd be like, Stephanie, like we can like say those things. I'm like, all right, he's hangry, he needs
Yep.
food.
And do it with
You know what I
love,
mean?
and,
And
and,
do
and
it
do
with
it with
love.
love. Because I
Right.
think that's the other catch all, right? Like, people, if you're operating from a place of love, and you're truly moving in that space, then your friend, knowing that even when you have to do harsh criticism, or not want to say harsh
Hmm.
criticism, but you have to do critical criticism, like, like,
Yeah.
friend, I love you, but who you're showing up right now in this party is not you. I need you to pull yourself together. You need to be able to have that conversation with your friend,
Hmm.
and them not be so offended that they, oh, well, you know what, this friendship is done because you don't see,
Right.
like, nothing. If you love someone, think of your friends as family, and we always say that saying, blood is thicker than water, right? But also, it's not always who you're born into this thing with, but the people that you cultivate friendships with, who are
Hmm.
just like family, should hold the same value as that,
Yeah.
blood is thicker than water, concept of thinking. Because when we say that saying, we're implying that, what, no matter what, right or wrong, I'm going to ride for my family. And I think
Hmm.
family is just as important as family, right? So when we're talking, riding or dying for a friend, like, or for a family member.
Yeah, but it's just a thin line. Because
True.
here's the
I
thing,
mean,
if you involved in some stuff that I'm like, I'm not going down for that. Like, I need to think about, okay, can I really be around this person? Like, when you think about ride or die, like there's limits
there's a
to
difference. And
this. Just like
I,
same thing in relationship, there's limits.
I mean, I don't disagree, because I mean, if you commit a crime, stuff, I'm not gonna say, oh, I'm riding
Yeah,
all the way to the prison yard.
exactly. You
So
you might be able to do a character reference, but
I might be able to
but
help you
you're
with a
not
good
going
lawyer,
down on
but
the
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know if I'm actually going to allow him to stand
But
and
that but
this
that's another
perjury.
thing
But
too. Like if we're involved in things or we know we're not in a healthy situation or whatever it is, I think it's our responsibility not to bring our friends down with us just because you care about them so much, right? Like sometimes I think we and not I'm not speaking like you and I, but just we like people in general.
yeah,
It's fun to turn up. It's fun to party. It's fun to be like, yo, every weekend we're going taking shots, we're going doing whatever because you want people to be as messed up or as
yeah.
lit or whatever it is as you are. But if you know your friend has a drinking problem, why are you even like entertaining this whole like experience? Like, no, we're not going to go there. We're going to go somewhere else. And I think we also hold that responsibility.
Mhm.
Even though everybody's responsible for themselves, but if I care about you, I'm not going to take you to a place to cause you to fall. And that's like growth and that's adulthood on both levels of friendship.
That reminds me of another saying. Am I my brother's keeper? And
That part. And
that
that's uncomfortable.
and people like where it's comfortable, right? We humans by default like where there is little to no conflict. We don't
Mhm.
want there to be issues, and I think that's a really good thing to examine, because well, I've had a friendship where I thought this was my homie,
Mhm.
we riding and a dying, and
Yeah.
then you find out
Literally.
that literally, right, literally, and then you find out that meanwhile, I think there's a meme that was like, here I am riding and you just want me to die, right? And he's like,
Mhm.
do you really ride for me? And then you find out, as the relationship grows, that they've been low-key harboring, which was news to me in this friendship. They've
Mhm.
been low-key harboring resentment, bitterness, angriness towards me. And I'm sitting here none the wisest, right? Thinking it's all good simply because they weren't any emotional space to be able to have a conversation, a hard conversation. And the hard conversation really shouldn't have been even with me. It was more with themselves, because
Yeah.
a lot of what they saw and what they felt had to do more with their interpretation of who they,
Right. And they were
how they viewed
projecting.
me, and yeah, and not who I was, right? And I think that's all, I think that's something you also have to look at in your friendships. Are you mad at your friend because of something you haven't resolved with self, or is there a true issue? Because if there's a real issue, then you shouldn't have a problem talking to them about it. And if you find yourself always having problems talking to your friend who's supposed to be ride or die, or a family, and you can't seem to bring the words to tell them, then maybe there's a deeper issue with something about how you are interpreting your friendship, and maybe how you view yourself in respects to your friend. If you can't dialogue with them, if you don't
Yeah.
will speaking up for your boundaries and
Yeah.
where you stand with them.
Well, and I think another way of just like showing support for your friends is understanding their situations and being cognizant of that in relation to your situation, right? Like
Yeah.
if I want to do something and I know one of my friends does not have the funds to do something, I'm not going to be like, well, why don't you come here and do this and that and expect you to spend an exorbitant amount of money,
Yeah.
knowing that I know you don't have it, unless, and maybe some other people might feel different about this, unless I'm willing to help like fund it.
Right.
If
But
I
I think
already
that's
know, because there'd be plenty of times to be like, yo, I got you.
I got you.
Just come.
But I think that's the thing, right? Like when I invite you to events, when you're visiting me, here in the tri-state, and I'm like, okay, I know, like we were talking earlier
Crashing
about
at your house.
right. There was an event earlier. I was like, well, the tickets are like $100, but don't worry, I got you. That's something that you do because you want your friend to be a part of this particular thing. I'm not going to like, if I ain't got you, then I'm not going to invite you. I feel that's the other catch-22, right? Because if I want you to be there bad enough, I'm gonna hold you down, but I'm also not going to hold that over you. And I think that's the other part, right?
I was just thinking about that today.
Because some people will
don't remind me every time that you've done something for me.
Right.
Because I got you into this. Oh, I got you into that. Remember that time I paid for this?
Because if you were doing it genuinely from your heart, it really doesn't matter. And I think knowing your boundaries, right? So there's this thing, and I think this is okay. And some people I know the comments are probably going to light up on this as I put my drink
down.
What
you drinking? Wait. Did you just grab a drink?
I did. I had whiskey ride.
So I'm doing dry January, by the way.
Dry January? Oh, so
water.
It's not vodka? Okay. Oh, he's so bored sometimes, but it's all good. I celebrate. No, it's all jokes. It's all jokes. But I had to put my drink down because I wanted to underscore this part about
they're about to lose some friends.
No, I'm just saying, like, about the idea of keeping tab or keeping tally. Like, okay, I did so you should do this. I did this. So you got to understand, just like love languages are different for each person, showing up for a friendship and how you express showing up for that friendship is different for each individual. And I think you need to meet them where they're at and love them for who they are and not what they can do for you, if that makes sense. Right now, for example, I live by the code of never loan out what you will miss, right? So if I
learned that the hard way.
I'm saying, like, if you're my friend and I know my budgetary limits, okay, what can I, and you say, you know what, I need like $500. I need $500 because A, B, and C, D, E, F, G, right? And you're like, I really need, as a friend. Now, yes, do I have the 500? Could I give you the full 500? Yeah, potentially, yeah. However, am I financially in the space where if I give you this 500 and I don't get it back, is it going to compromise a bill or a thing that's going to then put me at odds with you? I need to process that as your friend and say, okay, well, I could give you the full 500. And yeah, if you pay me back on time, yeah, that'll be fine and I can cover that bill. But do I want to set myself up to where if you can't come back with the money and I now can't pay that bill, so now I'm angry at you, but really I'm angry at
you ain't paying yourself because I'm
overexerting, right? Because with the expectation that, so I'm like, okay, well, you know what, friend, I can't give you 500, but I can definitely hook you up with 150 or 200, and I'm not going to miss that, right? I know I can make that back and still cover what I need to cover on my end. Then as my friend, the 200 was 200. You have 200 more than you didn't have. So, oh, okay, yeah, 200 is cool. Whatever you can is fine, da, 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 da. As opposed to, well, for the person receiving the money or asking for the money, 200.
Mhm.
Like, I gave you 800 last week, you know, for the A, B,
Mhm.
C, D, E, F, G. You should be at least able to meet me and give me my at least 500, you know,
Yeah.
back. And we can't move like that, because that's not what your friendship should be.
But I don't know. I feel like I've never asked friends for money. I just
Either.
not be, it's
Not
one
in
of those
that
things.
not in that
Yeah,
regard.
and
Like,
not
it's different at the tab.
it'd be like back in the day,
Cover
you'd
me
be
for
like,
$30
yo,
and I
I don't
got you.
get right. Or it'd be like back in the day, like, yo, I don't get paid until Friday, but I'll go out with you. You got me, those kind of things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also, if a friend asks you for money, do you just give them money? Or if they say, hey, I need the money for the light bill, do you say, hey, give me your account for the light bill and I'll pay it? Because now you're on, it's like you're on the honor system.
I
I don't
mean, if
know.
you're my friend, I would trust you with like my light bill. Like, hey, if I'm, I mean, I would trust you with that information. But on the same page, I also wouldn't want to put my friend. So let's be very clear. I won't want to put my friend in that situation. I don't want you to
Mhm.
feel obligated to pay a bill or something that's a necessity for me. However, I do think if you truly are friends with this person and you're in dire straits, that they should understand and be aware of that before
Mhm.
you come to them with with the ask, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of friendships dissolve over money because there is lack of communication. Either your friend is balling, and so you want to appear to be balling out of control,
Mhm.
and
Especially with social media.
I,
Everybody gotta have a bag. Everybody
I,
gotta be on the trip.
I'm
Everybody,
saying, and half
yeah,
that stuff is rented or
right.
rent it, or is
Mhm.
your bar
Borrowed,
friend, right? Like, or it's vintage,
borrowed with honor, stolen.
right? Or it was scammed, city grows up.
Right,
I'm
right,
just
right,
saying,
right.
like, so and so living up to this ideal of I need to match my friend's fly, I think you need to be comfortable with who you are. And again, if they're your friend, then they ride with you regardless. This brings me to a point. We have a friend in our circle, this friend, who I'm not going to say who it is, who necessarily does not match any of our friends' fly, and always tends to
Oh,
show up.
you have a friend in your
I,
circle.
I have a friend in my circle. Yeah,
I was like, what? Not my
let's
circle. No, I'm
clarify all
kidding.
of our. Let me rephrase that. So we have a friend who does not necessarily match the fly of all the friends that are in that circle. However, we don't look for that friend to be the flyest thing on the block, right? That's not why we have you in our friendship circle, because we're not looking for you to be dressed to the nines all the
But is
time.
this a friend or an associate? Because I don't think this person is a friend to you. I think it's an associate. So let's also clarify that for the new year. Everybody's not your friend. I think friends you're able to hold accountable for their actions. Associates, it's like, I don't care if I don't talk to them or not. I don't care if like we're supposed to connect or reach out and they don't do that. Like we need to make that very clear for
Sure,
2023.
sure.
Like there's a difference. That person is not your friend.
So then
I'm
let's
telling you that right
let's
now.
well, let's
So, and
double
that
back.
and I don't even think they deserve to like be called like in your circle, because I think it's like a more of a perimeter thing. This is a friend by circumstance, and not this is an associate by circumstance.
How many in the comments? I want to hear from y'all. How many of y'all have friends by circumstances where you were
No,
a friend of
associates by
I'm sorry,
circumstance.
associates. Let me rephrase that. Associate, but like they became cool with you because you were cool with someone else.
With somebody else,
Really,
and that
your
happens a
friend.
lot. But then sometimes people be thinking y'all are
That's all
cooler
right.
than what you are, that you're really friends, and it's like, hey, like you know me only to a certain level, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
and it's no
to the
love
point,
loss.
right. But to the
Like,
point, real quick about borrowing money, I made me think about that accountability piece for your friends. Here's the thing: if you're gonna ask me to borrow money for like a bill or whatever, but we're out every weekend or you're something and I see you with the latest, this is not like I'm not clocking your checks, I'm not doing whatever. I'm like, hey, let's have a conversation about
yeah,
like budgeting, or let's have a conversation about like responsibly doing your money. Granted, I'm not I'm
but that's a valid
responsible,
point.
but
That's
you know what I
valid.
mean? Like, yo, you got all the fly stuff, but you asking me for a light bill? Like, let's hold our friends accountable.
But that's valid because again, we're talking friendships, right? So if your friend is your friend and you're a writer, then you should be able to, like, if you feel comfortable enough asking me to help you pay your light bill because you're short this month, but you able to buy those Gucci boots. I think there is
In the same month.
in the same month, right? And we just went to Philippe Chow and paid, what we paid at Philippe Chow for overpriced drinks. And I ain't gonna lie, the food rocking. But I say that to say, like, you can afford that, but you can't pay your $100, $200 light bill. So there's a problem.
And there's a thin line though too, because I get
yeah,
like going out with your friends makes you feel better about your situation,
agreed.
da da da. But
But
once you get
also,
home and that money don't clear,
I'm just,
yeah,
but
okay, real friends aren't going to judge you for that. They're going to be like, hey, I
at
might have
all.
to sit this dinner out,
at all.
unless somebody says like, hey, like, oh, I got you. You know what I mean?
Not to mention though, if they're your friends and they know, again, this goes back
They're
to
not going to be
communication.
expecting you,
They're not going to
pressuring you
be
to go out.
it's like, oh, okay, well, you can't make it up. Well, girl, what's going on? Well, my bills, da da da. Okay, well, you know what? I got you. Or if it's yo, homie, what's good? What? Well, we're gonna swing by the crib and we're gonna let's do
Let's have a
takeout.
night in.
Yeah, because I really need to
That's
just.
about being that's being considerate with your friends.
Ooh, can we talk about it? Because
So we got accountability,
okay,
responsibility,
okay,
consideration,
okay.
and then these are associates outside of your circle, associates by circumstance.
That's what you're about to say. We
Stop
got some
calling everybody your friends.
because everybody ain't your friend. Everybody not
It's
right.
not.
And I think that there's value in that statement because we live in a world where everybody wants to be liked. I mean, all of the social media platforms are set up for you to be liked. So
Liked.
you want even the associates, right, in your perimeter circle to like you. So
Mhm.
if they're pressing to be friends or to imply that your acquaintance is more than what it really is, maybe again, you as a person need to be affirmed. And this, I'm talking to myself, maybe in a firm like, you know what, we cool, but I don't, I just want to state or reiterate that, you don't show up for me in the way that I need you to show up for you. And quite frankly, I'm not always showing up for you in the way that I should if I'm saying I'm your friend. Because if I'm your
Right.
friend, I would tell you, that maybe we could pull this fit together a little better, or maybe I can tell you that, that company that you keep, maybe that's not the best company, instead of just listening to the story,
Mhm.
right? And just being an ear, right?
Mhm.
I think again, if you truly care for someone, you should be able to have those hard conversations. And it's
Yeah.
not, it's look, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm still in therapy working through my stuff. I think that's one thing that everyone should be honest with themselves. You are human. You're going to consistently evolve. You're going to
Mhm.
consistently grow. That's what humans do. And your friends should be growing as well. Can friends grow apart? I think that leads us to our next question, or maybe our final question. I'm not sure what the
Mhm.
timetable is looking like, but can friends grow apart? And I'm one to say that there can be a moment where you and your friends are there, right, and you're locked in. However, both of you, which is what we thought ultimately was going to happen to Molly and Issa, right,
Mhm.
and they were looking at their friendship, maybe they grew apart, maybe they're no longer who they were, so they don't fit right in the same space. But I also want to say on the flip side of that, if you love someone, do they just simply because they are no longer compatible with your current life, does that mean they're disposable, or do you love them from a distance? You did what I'm saying? Like, can
Yeah, I think friendships grow apart because it's either circumstantial or situational.
ooh,
So your circumstances are like you've moved across the country or life changes or careers and you're so busy. And I don't think it's a grow apart thing. It's more just like we don't keep in touch as much as we used to because life, right? And it's not even because life and it's not because I don't want to. It's more so just these are my people that are here right now that I have like built this amazing relationship with who get me as a person who I am right now. It doesn't mean I love you any less. It's just like because of our circumstances in life, we don't have the opportunity as much to reconnect and reevaluate and like pour into our friendship as much
yeah,
versus when it's situational. It's like something has happened, like something went down. You're fighting
a
about
man
something,
like in the
there's
and
you
Chelsea,
you've
like
made a
that.
choice to start hanging out with a different friend group and then you nix this person. So I think it's different and I think you have to treat those accordingly whether it's situational or circumstantial. And I think as we've gotten older, I think the majority of the reason why friendships have, I wouldn't say have grown apart, they've just evolved in a different way is because of circumstances.
Agreed.
Most of you 30 and up, it's circumstantial.
And then ultimately, I think too, toxicity is another thing. Like
Mhm.
realizing that, okay, in your 20s, everybody just wants to have fun, but then you get to a space where you mature, and the toxicity of your relationship, you realize that, okay, while I like having fun, I also have this whole other side of me that you may
Mhm.
not be matching, right? And we have a conversation, but then there's no change. And then, you make that hard line in the sand, like, look, I'm not
Mhm.
chasing nothing that ain't chasing me. I'm not submitting
What?
myself to things that
Hmm.
are not conducive to where I want to be in life, where, you know, the reciprocation is not happening on the other side of the table, right? So I think,
Like
you
if
know,
you're always the one reaching out and you're always the one making the plans
woo,
and you're always,
woo,
I stopped that a while
whoa,
ago because I was like, I certain situations, you're like, why am I always the one like reaching out or making
yes,
the plans or trying
yes.
to connect and all these things? It's like, hey, if we're friends
It's
and this is supposed to be mutually beneficial, and granted, sometimes, and I saw this on a blog post, like sometimes this person doesn't have the energy
mhm.
to do that. And like you got to know what friend you are, right? You got to know what role you play. I'm like the reach out friend, right? I'm like the one like, hey,
Same. I
check
think
in,
that's
how
kind
are
of
you
why we work.
doing?
Yeah,
Like
same.
I'm that friend.
I need to check in.
But also sometimes that can feel very depleting because if you're always that friend and like everybody just expects that from you. So
Yep.
then when you pull back and you don't get that reciprocated, it feels like, well, damn, like, do they
And
really
that part.
care? But they just expect it from you because that's just who you are innately.
And I think that part, knowing when you need to reverse roles in your friendship as far as pouring into and being poured into, right? Like
Mhm.
you're right. I think me and you, that's probably why we have gotten along for as long as we have. We're both checker inners. Like
Mhm.
I'll send you a random text, like, you know, we might not
Right.
talk for several weeks, but I'm like, everything good, you know,
Right,
everything
right,
good.
right.
Like, and it's just kind of innately who we are by default. So when you're in a friendship with someone who maybe is not a checker upper, they're a recluse,
Mhm.
right? It can be a little more difficult. However, when that recluse realizes they haven't heard from you in a while, which we have a friend, I think that's more reclusive, but that
Mhm.
friend will still check in on us from time to
Always,
time,
yeah.
you know, when they don't hear from us in a minute or when they haven't seen
Mhm.
us post stories like, hold up, I ain't heard from them. I ain't seen no social
Mhm.
media. I'm just peeking in to make sure you good.
Yeah.
Even though they by default are naturally reclusive, they're not
Right.
always trying to be in the mix. And that's and again, I think that's understanding what your role is in that friendship. And again, like when you realize like friendships are also like dating, because I think we also forget that the whole dating concept of you're
Mhm. You have
dating
to
someone
court
for
your
money,
friends.
right? Like if you are confused about the relationship, if you're like, do they like me? Do they not like me? You
Mhm.
can't tell if they like you. They're not that into you, and it's time to check out. It's time to tap out. And I
Mhm.
think friendships work the same way. Like, hold on,
Yeah.
am I always the one chasing behind this friend? Am I always the one pulling up? You know, I had a friend like this where I'm always constantly
Mhm.
being the one checking in. And then, you know, everything's all good as long as I'm checking in. And then, you
Mhm.
know, as soon as something goes left, you know, the connection sort of goes stale. And then
Mhm.
I'm the only one hitting the pavement, like, what's good? What's going on? What's going on? What's
Right.
going on? Until I worked the nerve to where they used to invite me back into their circle or like,
Yeah.
and that can become tiring as well. You have to be like, you know what, that's not a friend. That's not someone
Yeah.
who,
Don't make me chase you. Like
yeah,
this is,
we're not dating. So
we're not dating.
we're not dating. So my, so it's like we're
And
not
even if we were, don't make me chase you.
right.
Like
Not like that. Like
it
the
should be
cat
an
and mouse is
equally
cool, right?
like
But
there should
yeah.
be some equal attraction of like the minds, the vibes, and all that stuff to make you want to be friends with somebody.
Friendships are fundamental to every single relationship, whether
Yeah.
that's your symbiotic relationships with, you know, your parents, whether that's you know, dating, you're dating someone, your significant other, married to that significant other, or whether that's just your general platonic friendships where there's nothing, you know, romantic happening at all, but you need them to show up. That friendship component, let me tell you, it would either make or break your relationship.
Well, thanks y'all for tuning in
That's
to our first episode of Champagne Dreams for 2023.
it.
Excited to bring more real life, pop culture, and motivation to you this year. So thanks, Dee.
I'm saying, and just make sure you leave in the comments what type of friend
Yes.
you're sure. We
What
listed
friend are
quite a
you?
few. We listed quite a few versions of friends you could be. What type of friend are you? And if you've had any bad friendship experiences, like we want to hear about it. So like drop that in the comments too.
Oh, we're
Like tell
getting
us about,
juicy.
I mean, use that as the venting
Just don't
part
call
of,
out no names. We don't want no drama
yeah,
on
please
our.
don't add them. I mean, but see, I'm Scorpio. I'm extra spicy, so I'm like,
Oh
add
my
them if you
gosh.
want. I mean, maybe we can get, maybe we can bring them on. Maybe that's what we do. We'll bring
Okay.
on. If you leave it in the comments, we can bring you on in our next
Are we
comment.
trying to repair
And we're
friendship?
going to repair. What I mean, if Ayana can fix lives without. She's a fake doctor. Why can't we also tell our fake
Look,
doctor?
boy, we gotta go.
Okay, we gotta go. All right. See you in the comments. Bye.
Bye.